Verb stems in Targum Onkelos, the second part. Let's use the Semitic verbal system paradigm for discussing the verb system of Jewish literary Aramaic. Now, there is no end stem, we know that, and the simplification process through time has resulted in a system where we only have an active and a variant of the active in each of the three major stem categories, the G, D, and C. Now, if we look at the bottom, there's a shafel and an ishtafel that comes from the prefix consonant being a sheen instead of an aleph. There are certain verbal roots where there's a shafel instead of an afel, and that's why we have that variant. Now, for strong verbs, here we have the vocalization pattern as seen in the earliest manuscripts of Targum Onkelos, which used the Babylonian pointing system. Since we're more familiar with Tiberian pointing, first we'll substitute that to see more clearly the vowels as well as the doubled middle radical we expect for the D stem, active and passive, the pa'el and the itpa'al. Now we can go to an actual example. This is the tav, kof, pei verbal root. Because there are only 6 verbal stems, it's easier to find verbal roots that cover the entire paradigm than it is, say, in Biblical Aramaic with such a small corpus and more verbal roles to fill. And here I would have preferred to have everything be perfect third masculine singular, but there are not examples attested for this verb in the perfect third masculine singular for all of these stems. Most of these are from Targum Onkelos, but I also needed to go to Targum Jonathan for the TG and TC. Looking at these stems briefly, you see that takef is the pa'al, takef is the pa'el, and C, which is the afel, is atkef. And then you have the TG, TD, and TC variants that introduce the possibility of expressing those same ideas in the passive. A quick note before we leave, it's not terribly obvious with the tav, kof, pei verbal root what the relationship is between the C and the G, but you see on the C row between the active and the passive, there is that voice alternation due to those different stems. So that having been said, as we read Targum Onkelos, we'll have a simplified verbal system according to this pattern.